guys, how are you? Today we're going to look at dialing in Sarniezz by Angine the Poitrine on the guitar on Helix. On equip.com we can see a list of gear that Kin uses. We don't have most of it. On the Helix natively we do have the Rat, which I don't think he uses in that song, and we do have the Roland Jazz Chorus. So we don't have much of his actual gear, but we'll do our best anyway. So coming back into the Helix now, you can see my full patch here on snapshot 1. We've only got the compressor, the amp, the cab and the EQ active at the moment. Like we saw on equip.com, we've got the Jazz Rivet 120 amp, and I'm driving this amp a little hard because it's not a super clean sound. It's an edge of breakup kind of sound. The compressor is also pushing that. It's also quite thin. So we've pulled out a lot of bass and we're pushing mainly in the mids, and then our treble is reasonably high and the presence is 5. Our volume settings are most of the way full and the bright switch is all the way on. Then on the cab, this is mostly standard except I've edited the low and high cuts. The low cut is brought up to 228 Hz and the high cut is brought down to 5.5 kHz. For now I'll turn off the EQ and the compressor just so you can see what the amp and cab sounds like by themselves. Moving on to the compressor, we've got the threshold down at 37.1. The ratio is not too extreme at 4.1, and then we've got attack at 15 milliseconds and the release at 400 milliseconds. We're not doing a side chain kind of thing. We can leave the mix all the way full, and then you'll notice that the only thing outlandish on this is I've pushed the level to 21.2. This is acting nearly as a bit of a distortion pedal, so I can hit the front of the Jazz amp a bit harder. I'll show you what that sounds like now. Our last block on snapshot 1 is the EQ here. You can see we've cut out the bass at the first 2 slots here. Most of the rest of it is left at default, and then you can see at 500 Hz here we're just pushing the mids another bit. And I'll show you now with the EQ on. And now we can move on to snapshot 2, which is this riff here. So on snapshot 2, what happens is we engage the deranged master pedal. We have the drive at 5.6, bass at 3.8, and the treble at 6.5, and then the levels at -7.2. We've got a slightly more aggressive tone on this riff. And then just coming back to the Jazz amp, some settings have moved around. We can see the drive is at 7.5, bass has come up a bit to 4.4, the mids are 8.2, treble 7.1, the presence has dropped a bit to 4.0, and then just some slight modifications to the volume. Snapshot 3 is for this riff here. For the tremolo to work correctly, we need to set the tempo, which you would either do in your DAW if you're using the VST, or on the Helix itself with the tap tempo, or the tempo settings. You need to lock the time clock here that syncs it to the tempo, and then the note sync is 1 30-second triplet. We've got intensity of 6.5 and a sine wave and a duty cycle of 50% and a level of 0. We'll run back through the distortion pedal and the amp as well, because as you see on these here, they change by snapshot. On the deranged master, the drive is now 6.7, the bass is 3.3, and the treble is 6.5. And on the Jazz Rivet, we've got the drive at 5.6. The bass has come down quite a lot. It's a really thin sound. Our mids are MIDI. We've got pushed treble at 7.9. The presence is a bit higher than usual at 6.1. And then with 8.5 on the channel volume and 6.7 on the master. And now for snapshot 4, which is this ending riff towards the end of the song. As you can hear, that's super fuzzy. We add an octave pedal here, as you can see, the simple pitch. We're doing interval at -12, which means it's just an octave down, so it's like the same note but lower. Sense is 0, delay is 0, shift level is 10, mix is 50%, which means we hear half of the low pitch and half of our normal pitch, and level is 0. Again, the distortion pedal and the amp change about, so we'll run through those one more time. The deranged master is 9.6 on the drive, the bass is 6.5, and the treble is 4.2. And then for the amp settings, we've pushed most of the amp up 3/4 region, as you can see here. So I'll just give you a moment to copy all those. The volumes are kind of the same, so everything's just pushed up to around that region. So that patch is guitar 1, which is, I would consider, the lead because it changes the most. I'll show you guitar 2 now. So for most of the song, the guitar 2 plays this riff here. riff is only going to be on this top channel or path here, so we can ignore this bottom line for now. We'll start with the amp, which is again the Jazz Riff at 120. We've got really pushed drive, low bass, and then like 3/4 mids and treble, and the presence is on the lower half. And then we've got 6 on the channel volume, 6.6 on the master. Then on the cab, we've got the 1x10 US Princess and using the 57 dynamic. We've got 7.2 on the position, distance is 10.5. Again, we're cutting the lows here quite a lot and the highs. This is to give it like a lo-fi, poor quality sound. We're using the deranged master again with 3/4 drive there at 6.3. We've got middle bass at 5.2 and the treble at 7.4. The level's at -4.6. And then we're using a similar EQ that we did on the first guitar, and we've stripped out a lot of bass and pushed the mids here again. And then looking at the compressor, nearly the same settings as the other guitar, except our level isn't pushing the amp as hard. Now we'll move on to Snapshot 2, which is that fast riff at the end of the song with like this. Similar to the first guitar, all that's changed is the amp and the distortion. We've got the drive there pushed up to 7.9. We've got low bass at 2.8. Mids and trebles are pushed reasonably high there with the presence at around the halfway point. And then our channel volume is 7.5 and the master at 6.6. And we've got the bright switch off this time. On the deranged master, we've got a drive of 7.2, middle bass and high trebles. And then the level is 1.2. Finally, looking at Snapshot 3, that's the same riff, but we're given the illusion that another guitar has come in. That's why we have the second path. I'll show you what it sounds like first. And the way we achieve that illusion is we pan the top path to the left, and before I move to the bottom path for the second guitar, I'll just run through the amp and pedal settings again. The deranged master is on 6.9, and like we're pushing everything. We're pushing the bass, the treble, and the levels backed off a bit to 4.6. And then on the amp itself, we've got the drive fairly pushed. The bass has come up a small bit, and then the mids is 6.2, treble is 6.7, the presence around halfway. Channel volume 7.5, and master is at 5.9, and the bright switch comes on. And now we'll move down to the bottom row. It's the same amp again, and you can take a moment there with the settings. We've got pushed gain, a lot of the EQ is on the upper end, the volumes are pushed as well, with the bright switch off. And we've got a very similar setup here on the cab. It's the same cab with a lot of similar, if not the same settings. We're using the rat here like we saw on equipboard.com. Most of it's on the higher end of the settings, as you can see there. Pause if you need to grab those. And then what's giving it that double guitar illusion is this block here called the double take in the modulation folder. What this does is it listens to what you play, and it makes like a slightly imperfect copy of it. So if we turn off the dry level, that's the actual thing you've played, and the wet level is the imperfect copy. So if we're only playing the wet level out of this pedal, it means the guitar signals come in here, and we've kind of got a slightly different take straight away on the two different paths. The top path is like the original take, the bottom path is the double take. We've got it set to 1 double with high slop and sensitivity, and then that runs into the gear that we just looked at a second ago. And then the last thing that makes this work is we pan it to the right in the host. So the original guitar has gone left, and the double take copy is gone to the right. And that's Sarniezz, guys. If you have any requests, please let me know. I've also done Hot for Teacher here and Cowboys from Hell here if you're looking for more songs. Cheers.